EJ here at the Back Porch Antiques, and today we're going to talk about Harmon Pottery. In East Tennessee, we are blessed with a plethora of wonderful material history that celebrates our region and celebrates our region's heritage and history. Harmon Pottery is one of those things. I've had several requests for some of our friends and customers that I do a video on Harmon Pottery. Everybody wants to know kind of the backstory and why Harmon Pottery is so popular. So the backstory. The bridge burners. In November of 1861, there was a happening concerning the Civil War. A gentleman by the name of Jacob Harmon, and there were actually several of them that were involved in this. Specifically, Henry Fry, Jacob Henshaw, Jacob Harmon, his son Henry Harmon, and Christopher Alexander Hahn, as well as an individual by the name of Harrison Self. These individuals were Union sympathizers, and under the guise of President Abraham Lincoln, they were part of a plan to destroy infrastructure for Confederate forces coming into East Tennessee. As a matter of fact, President Lincoln and his command were planning to advance into East Tennessee. Well, that didn't happen, but the bridge burners didn't hear about that until it was too late. So they actually did burn bridges and took down some telegraph lines and things like that, and the Confederates were furious because it set them back and it set their advances back, and they ordered the forces to try quickly and hang on spot, if convicted, those who were a part of that, coup against the Confederate government. Coup may not be the word, but we'll call it a sabotage. And most of these individuals were potters. They operated pottery. The Harmons were one. Christopher Hahn was another one. We won't talk specifically about his pottery today. It is also very famous in East Tennessee, also very valuable, and a little bit of a different style. But long story short, all of these people were tried, convicted, and hanged. Mr. Fry and Mr. Henshaw were hanged on Depot Street of Greenville. And Mr. Hahn and the two Harmons were hanged in Knoxville. And sad story, a little bit of a side note, is that the elder Harmon actually had to stand and watch at the command of the Confederate forces as his son was hanged before him. And they both kind of went out the same way there. The Self individual, Harrison Self, that I mentioned, was also tried and convicted, but his daughter was of some political status and reached out to Jefferson Davis, who immediately pardoned Mr. Self. So a little bit of a backstory there and some history of the happenings. But it's a very interesting story. But what is interesting about the story and the way that we work with it here at the Back Porch Antiques is the actual material culture that we can affiliate with the Harmon Pottery. These three pieces here are examples of Harmon Pottery. We've had several pieces of Harmon Pottery come through our store. By the way, we're always looking for more. We have a list of individuals who are customers of ours who are looking for these pieces. So if you have any that you'd like to sell, we're buyers. We're not out to slip shuck you or hoodoo you or anything like that. We'll pay you a fair price. We just want to get these pieces into the hands of our customers to preserve that heritage and that history. These pieces actually belong to Ray and Daphne Allen. They're good examples, and I'd like to talk just a little bit about them and the process of Harmon Pottery. So these are examples of stoneware or earthenware, but salt glazed pottery that came from the Harmon Pottery. Now, again, 1860s on up into the turn of the century is about the time of operation for this pottery. This is the earliest piece that we have. If you will notice, well, let me back up just a little bit about how this works. These are actually turned, clay pots that are turned, and then they are salt glazed. The salt glazing process actually involves a kiln that is heated between 1800 to 2200 degrees Fahrenheit, around 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are stacked. If you'll notice, by the way, that is a deciding factor, or at least an identifier for Harmon Pottery. They have what's called stack marks. If you'll notice the half moon type differences in the tops of the Harmon Pottery, it's where they would stack on top of each other, and the glaze would be omitted from that area. You can see it on this particular piece here too. kind of the half moon pieces there. There's a good indicator of it. But they were stacked on top of each other. And then at which point the salt was actually thrown by handfuls into the kiln, and it immediately vaporized at such temperature, and that's what offers that pretty glaze, as well as a strengthening process, making the pots stronger, waterproof, those sorts of things. But the more valuable Harmon pieces are the ones that are signed, or they're actually stamped. They have the Harmon name on them. The earlier pieces just say Harmon. And this is an example of that. I don't know if you can see very clearly. Maybe we can get a still shot at some point, but they're all banded right here, and they're stamped. And H-A-R-M-O-N, and the N is always backwards on these older ones. So this would have been the era of Jacob Harmon. So you're looking at a pot here from 1850-ish, and that's pretty interesting. This one's a little bit newer. From after the Jacob days, it says M.P. Harmon, Mohawk, on it. It's a different stamp, a newer stamp, but it's stamped all the way around there, and these are from the Mohawk area of Greene County. This one is particularly special because of its cobalt decor. We call that the Bluebird, and what that is that's cobalt oxide that is placed on the pots in decoration before they are fired, and then they are glazed over that. And these are wonderful particular pieces. I don't know anything else to tell you about these pieces other than they're of great quality. They come in different sizes. You'll see some a little bit bigger. There have been stories of signed Harmon jugs. I know they made jugs. I've seen pictures of them. Never actually held one. They're extremely valuable. These also are valuable. The signed just regular utilitarian pots are valuable. They could, retail in the range of $500 to $750 or $800, depending on condition. Obviously, a signed Bluebird piece would be of more value. Something even more rare, like there are stories of like chicken feeders, chicken waterers, that came from the Harmon Pottery. I've never seen one. That's kind of more attributed to Decker out of Washington County. There have been examples of, like I said, signed Harmon jugs, and those would be of more significant value. The jugs that are not signed, that are obviously Harmon, are still in the $100 range, so they still have some value, but just not as sought after as the signed Harmon pieces. I think that pretty well covers it all. I hope those answer some questions and shed a little bit of light on the particular mystery, if you will, of Greene County pottery, and specifically Harmon Pottery. Go do a little research, and if you'd like for us to add you to our list of acquisition, give us a yell here at the shop, and we'll be glad to do that. We're always on the search for these, and we want to get this history in the hands of the people who love it. That's what we're all about. Every piece has a memory, and with that, I'll see you next time.